In this section, we're going to start off by looking at radical expressions. An expression that contains a radical sign is a radical expression. And there are many different types of radical expressions, so here are an example of a few of them. We've got the square root of 14, we've got the square root of L squared plus W squared, we've got the square root of 2g2, and the square root of 18. Now, the expression under a radical sign is called the radicand. Now we're going to look at an example of simplifying square root expressions. Here we have the square root of 2 divided by 72. So we can look at that fraction and we can see that it's not fully simplified. So let's go ahead and simplify the fraction first, or the radicand. So 2 divided by 2 is going to give us 1. And then 72 divided by 2 is going to give us 36. So we can reduce it to 1 over 36. Now we can go ahead and take the square root. You can do the square root of the top and bottom individually. So the square root of 1 and the square root of 36. Square root of 1 is 1. And we know that 6 times 6 equals 36. So the square root of 36 equals 6. Now we're going to look at another example. We have the square root of 3 squared plus 4 squared. We want to go ahead and simplify the radicand, or what's inside the radical, first. So 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, so 9 plus 16 would give us 25, so the square root of 25. And we know that 5 times 5 equals 25, so the square root of 25 is 5. Now we're going to look at an example of the product property of square roots. Here we have the square root of 4 times 25. And that equals the square root of 100, which equals 10. Now, if we look at the square root of 4 times 25, we can take the square root of each term individually, if we want. The square root of 4 would be 2, the square root of 25 would be 5, and 2 times 5 equals 10. So you can do it either way. You can multiply what's inside, or you can take the square root individually first. Now we're going to look at another example. We have the square root of 18. So we want to go ahead and simplify the inside a little bit. So we know that 9 times 2 equals 18. So the square root of 9 times 2 equals the square root of 18. And we can split them up into two individual radicals. So square root of 9 and square root of 2. And the square root of 9 equals 3. So we can pull that 3 outside and it won't have a radical around it anymore. And that would just leave us with 3 times the square root of 2, which is 3 square root of 2. Now we're going to look at another example using the quotient property of square roots. Here we have the square root of 5 over 9. So you want to go ahead and take the square root of the top and bottom term separately when you have a fraction. So we got the square root of 5 divided by the square root of 9. And the square root of 5 is not something we can just solve without a calculator, so we can just leave it as square root of 5. And the square root of 9 equals 3, so our final answer would just be square root of 5 over 3. Now we're going to look at another example using the product and quotient properties together. Here we have the square root of 80 divided by 25. We're going to go ahead and simplify the top and the bottom, but first you want to split it. You want to make it square root of 80 over square root of 25. Now, let's look at the square root of 80. 16 times 5 equals 80. So you want to find terms that use perfect squares, and you can see 16 is a perfect square. So we get the square root of 16 times 5 divided by the square root of 25. Now, we can go ahead and split the top into two radicals. So we get the square root of 16 times the square root of 5 divided by the square root of 25. Now we can go ahead and simplify. The square root of 16, which is basically 4 times 4, so 4 times the square root of 5, and we can leave it as the square root of 5 because you can't solve that without a calculator. Now we can simplify it a little further, the bottom. So we have 4 times square root of 5 at the top, and then square root of 25 is going to be 5. So our final answer would be 4 square root of 5 divided by 5.